So anytime we're shipping hazardous materials, including lithium batteries, the important thing to remember from the Department of Transportation regulations are the three C's, right? So there's classification, containment, and communication. So classification is what is the material? Is it hazardous? What hazards does it pose? If I'm shipping flammable liquids, obviously there's a risk of flammability. Therefore, it's regulated in transport. With lithium batteries, they are regulated in transport because in extremely rare cases, they can undergo a thermal runaway process whereby they generate extreme heat, fire, projectile, off gas. It can be really nasty. So the first step is classification, understanding what you have. And then from there, the next step is containment. So what type of container, what type of packaging do we need to use to contain any hazards of lithium batteries, right? So if you're looking at things like electric vehicle batteries, oftentimes you see those shipped either in wood crates, sometimes metal boxes, and sometimes, especially for recycling, you'll see those EV packs, which can be up to 500 kg. You'll see them being shipped just strapped to a pallet, unpackaged. And then the last step will be communication. So what type of labels need to go on the package? What type of paperwork do we need to fill out? The communication aspect is really important because that's what the emergency responders are going to lean on. So if they're coming up to a bunch of packages and there's a fire or generation of heat, it's going to be really important for them to be able to look at a package and say, okay, that package has the Class 9 lithium battery label on it. So now I know as an emergency responder that there are batteries inside of that package, and that changes how I'm going to react to an emergency. So if you're asking about, what are the best practices to comply with DOT regulations, we could pull out the 49 CFR, and at least the copy that I used to have, the reg book itself is probably, 1,500 pages. So you can't really distill things down too easily. But the way I learned it, the way that I still teach people, is just going from the general philosophy of the three C's. So classify what you have. Is it regulated? Does it pose hazards? If it is regulated in transport, make sure to contain it. So that's going to be the packaging side. And then finally, communication. You need to make sure that you have the appropriate labels, the appropriate marks, the appropriate placards if necessary, as well as the documentation. So that would be the quick guide for compliance with DOT regulations are those three C's. If you're looking to maintain compliance with DOT transport regulations, obviously, first place to start is the regs themselves. So good thing is all of the regulations are written down, available online for free, ecfr.gov. The hard part is, as you can probably imagine, these regulations can get very complicated very fast. So when you're looking at best practices, unless you are a dangerous goods professional, and what I mean by that is somebody that deals with the transport regulations every day, you oftentimes, unless you have that level of expertise, some best practices certainly would include use of third parties, specifically third-party consultants that can come in, whether it's on a yearly basis, whether it's just once, but they could come in, kind of do a baseline assessment of the operation, see which areas of the operation are in compliance with DOT and then which areas might need some improvement. So we find that even for companies with very mature, dangerous goods compliance programs, that bringing in outside consultants on a regular basis really does help in terms of, getting that baseline assessment, understanding where you are, and sometimes most importantly, understanding that if you did have a DOT inspector on site, what type of regulation or what type of violations may they find that could leave the company open for enforcement and financial penalties. So regulations frequently change. Now, what's really important to understand is what are you shipping? And so I always use the example of aerosols. If I'm a company that produces and ships aerosols, the aerosol regulations haven't changed in 40 years, right? So there's actually, side note, there may be some changes coming, but for the last 40 years, it's basically keep your aerosol to less than 1 liter, put it in a strong box, put the limited quantity label, get it out the door. So those regulations are relatively static. What's interesting is within the lithium battery space, including electric vehicles, the lithium battery regulations are changing all the time. And the reason for this is the regulations around batteries are just not very mature. So I was at the agency, I was at Pipeline Hazmat Safety Administration when they published the, I don't know if I'd call it groundbreaking, but the big rule that changed everything in terms of shipping lithium batteries. This was published in August of 2014, so it is almost 11 years old. And 11 years sounds like a long time, but when it comes to government regulation, over these 11 years, we have seen wild changes in terms of how batteries are packaged, labeled, and documented for transport. So going back to that aerosol example, if I'm a company that ships aerosols, I might not need to have somebody on site every year because the regs are probably relatively stable. If I'm a company that's shipping lithium batteries and electric vehicle batteries, the regulations typically have pretty significant changes every year, every 18 months. And what we can tell you from being participants at the UN level that develop a lot of these regulations, that there's more changes coming. We are by no means at the mature state of lithium battery regulations. These things are going to be changing frequently, including some major changes that we might see in the next 2 years regarding classification.